you have any issues connecting to your internet?
No, thank you for checking.
It's still your case. Do you need to check your internet connection? Do you need me to talk?
Well, I decided I'd just use the one there.
It's fine. Reimburse the school. I'm upset over in the corner, but anytime afterwards, I can get it again.
Thank you. I've got it anyway. I just have to.
I didn't get an opportunity to mention to him that bereavement policy.
Yeah, so good. And I don't worry about it. I noticed that. I'm good. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you for checking.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Hey, how are you? Good. There we go.
Yes, everybody's here.
I think you're ready. He's here. He's here, but he's up next on finance.
I'm still on probation until
We
February.
got John, we got Frank,
Mm-hmm.
we got Steve,
Danny, Ashley.
Danny,
Yeah.
and Parker's not here today.
Yep. I think you're good.
Right. Detecting the presence of a quorum, I'm calling the Committee on Personnel and Compensation of the Tennessee Board of Regents to order. I'm Regent Howard Roddy. The first item on our consent agenda, the committee has previously reviewed the following items. First, tenure recommendations at universities and community colleges. Secondly, proposed revisions to bereavement policy 5010109. And third, proposed revisions to transfer of sick leave policy 5010115. The materials presented under the consent order have been provided to all members of the board. After you review these materials, does any committee member see any cause to remove any particular item out of the consent agenda for further discussion and action? Either of the three.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right. Since there are no items that we'd like to have pulled out of the consent agenda for further discussion, and we have a motion then to accept these items under the consent agenda, do I have a second?
Second.
All right. We've got a second from Regent Copeland. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. The motion carries. The second item, the committee will review and consider for approval the proposed revisions to the general personnel policy. At this time, I'll call on Vice Chancellor Sams. Welcome to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. The general policy 5010000 is our general personnel policy. There are several items that I'll highlight. Although you do have the materials, I do want to touch on what are the significant proposed changes. In principle, what we are proposing be done is that the requirement for certain transactions at institutions to be reviewed by the chancellor, reviewed and approved by the chancellor, that authority be narrowed somewhat. Currently, any direct reports to a president are reviewed by the chancellor, as well as any salary adjustments that relate to individuals making $100,000 or greater. In essence, what we're recommending is that provision related to the $100,000 or greater be removed. We believe that would put the approval process for institutional adjustments in the same light or in the same process that adjustments in the central office, your system office, are in relative to the chancellor. Under the board policy, the chancellor can take personnel actions as long as it is not a direct report to the chancellor. If it's a direct report, it requires board approval. What we're doing or proposing with this is that actions related to a direct report to an institutional president would still be subject to review by the chancellor, review and approval of the chancellor. With that said, I would want to emphasize that as always, the central office, system office reserves the right to audit 100% of transactions or to review 100% of transactions at any individual institution to determine compliance with board guidelines and policies. Two other elements of this, as part of this, we've got within this policy, we almost have a few provisions that relate to procedures. We have a procedure on moving expense and a procedure on reimbursement of expenses related to immigration that we're proposing be moved into board guidelines as opposed to within the board policy. Mr. Chair, with that as explanation, I'll be glad to stand and respond to any questions members might have.
Any questions for Vice Chancellor Sams?
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Regent Copeland. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Regent Varlin. Any unreadiness? This requires a roll call vote, I believe. Madam Secretary.
Regent Copeland.
Aye.
Regent Ferris.
Aye.
Regent Kisber. Regent Markham.
Aye.
Regent Roddy.
Aye.
Regent Smith. Regent Varlin.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you. As a third item, the committee will review and consider for approval the institution compensation increases. And I'll call on Vice Chancellor Sams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, background on this, you'll recall at your June meeting, the board adopted guidelines for institutions that chose to request salary adjustments at the institutional level using local funds. Those requests have been submitted to the central office, and we have reviewed, and those adjustments are before you for your consideration today. In summary, what we have are requests from 19 institutions. I shouldn't say requests. We have 3 institutions that requested no adjustment. We have 6 institutions that requested service payments, and a service payment, to refresh your memory on that, is a one-time payment, basically a performance payment. And then the comp plan adjustments are being proposed from 12 institutions, and those are essentially adjustments, recurring adjustments to base salaries that are in line with the institution's approved compensation plan. The dollars involved, I won't read the whole table to you, but it's in round numbers about $7 million in total. 4.8 would be comp plan adjustments. The total of these is less than 1% of the salary base of the system. So in terms of the magnitude of adjustments, I won't say the $7 million is not a material amount of money, but in the scheme of a $975 million payroll, it is not a significant adjustment in total. The next few slides will look at how the money is distributed. We'll start with our universities and looking at functional areas. We break this down by every functional area, but I'd call your attention primarily to that subtotal for academic. You'll see that the 3 universities that have requested comp plan adjustments, significant share, something almost, a little over 77% on average is being spent in the academic areas, whether it be instruction, research, public service, or academic support, with smaller shares spent in the other functional areas. In terms of type of employee or type of employment, again, 57% is proposed to be spent on adjustments for faculty, with lesser amounts for other employment types. Mr. Chair, I'm moving through this pretty rapidly, so if somebody wants to stop me, they should feel free to do so. The next two charts look at our community colleges. Again, similar charts, and again, the lion's share of the funding is going to academic areas. In terms of instruction, you can see that on average 60% of the proposed increases would fall in instruction, and almost 75% falls within that aggregate of academic areas. Again, with smaller amounts in the student services, institutional support, and maintenance categories. And then lastly, looking again at community colleges, when we look at types of employment, faculty is a little over half, 54%, with the next highest being clerical and support. A word on that, on the distribution here that's probably in order. We require that these monies be used to implement approved compensation plans. I think what we're looking at here in terms of what might appear to be sort of a slant toward clerical or professional staff, over the last several years when money's been tighter, institutions have generally used these dollars to adjust faculty salaries within their comp plans. Walter State may be a good example of that, where we don't reflect any money going to their faculty plan, and it's because their faculty plan is fully funded at this point in time. So they're using the available dollars that they have to move the other elements of their employment base toward fuller funding of the compensation plan, essentially moving those employees closer to market. Mr. Chair, unless there are questions from members of the committee, these adjustments come to you with the recommendation of the system staff.
Thank you. Are there any questions? You've heard the report by Vice Chancellor Sims. If there are no questions, we'll entertain a motion. All right, we have a motion from Regent Ferris.
Second.
And we have a second from Regent Markham. Any unreadiness? This motion will require a roll call vote as well. Madam Secretary.
Regent Copeland.
Aye.
Regent Ferris.
Aye.
Regent Kisber. Regent Markham.
Aye.
Regent Roddy.
Aye.
Regent Smith. Regent Varlin.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you. That motion passes, and that's the last item we have on our agenda. Unless any committee member has something else to bring up, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Got a motion and a second to adjourn. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Roddy, and I want to thank you for taking on the chairmanship of this committee at what I know is a very important time, busy time in your life. So thank you for your continued willingness to serve above and beyond the call of duty. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. And we will call our final committee meeting of the day, the Committee on Finance and Business Operations. I'd like to invite Regent Ferris, our committee chair, to remain here with us. Regents Freeman, Regent Griscom, Regent Roddy, Regent Thomas to return, and Regent Humphrey as well. And we'll get started momentarily on the Finance Committee. Thank you.
This was an easy one.